Welcome to our light chats. Today we have Aaron Potter. Aaron, do you mind introducing yourself?
My name's Aaron. I am a writer and filmmaker from England, and I'm really happy to be here to talk to you a little bit about my life and my story and what brings me here.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to have you. So let's start. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what your connection to suicide is.
Yeah, so it's something which I've had many experiences with in my life. I lost my father to suicide when I was 10, and I've had my own run-ins throughout my teenage years, my early 20s, and my uncle as well also had his own run-ins with that, which I was around for at the time.
I see. And obviously you've had to go through loss and grief. I'm curious how community helped in that process.
It's been kind of untraditional for me. So where I was looking for it at first wasn't where I was finding what I needed. And so for me, I found it in my best friend. I found it in my late husband and his parents. I found it in my cats. And I found it in a couple of cousins and my brother, and just kind of people who, when I was going through so much, they were there the whole time. They were my constant, my consistency. They allowed me to be going through what I'm going through, but they allowed me to, they were present, they validated my feelings, whether or not they necessarily agreed with them, but that validation and everything that I needed was what got me through.
Do you remember at this times, what were some of the things they were doing? I know you were saying they were validating. Were there other things that they were doing to support you?
For me, all I needed was someone who answered the phone and checked in, and some emotional support was the biggest thing for me. Someone who would just kind of just ask how I am. I'm very British. Where I'm from is very unemotional. It's quite emotionally cold. Particularly how I was raised, there wasn't a lot of that. And so finding that was a bit of a challenge, especially now on the later part of my life where I'm on the other side of the planet. I kind of split up my experience with this in two parts. You had my younger years where I didn't understand anything about suicide and I didn't understand mental health. I was 10 when my father passed away, and all I had to talk to was Google. And so I would find what people were saying about it, and I wouldn't agree with what they were saying. And a lot of what they were saying was negative stigma or blame or creating this. A lot of things I'd see would be like, it's so selfish. How could you do this and leave your children? And these weren't things that were helpful to anybody and aren't necessarily true. And so I struggled to get an understanding of suicide, and it wasn't something I could talk to anybody about because nobody wanted to have the conversation. Nobody wanted to talk about why or what happened, to the point that I would find out more in the local papers and from neighbors than I would in my household about what was actually happening and why. So it was very closed off. I didn't have access to therapy or a counselor or they didn't have anything like that at school. So I looked to media and movies and TV. And I kind of got lost in stories there, which helped me to sort of understand, but not enough to really get a grasp on what it was. And then you have the flip side. When I've come to America as my adult years, and I married my husband who passed in 2019, and I was right at the beginning of the pandemic, just a couple months before everything closed down, and so now I'm closed off from my people who did kind of help me the first time around. They're on the other side of the world. I don't have access to any emotional support. I'm living in what is essentially become a memory box on the other side of the planet. But at this time, it's slightly different because I've I understand suicide and mental health now, but even if you understand it, when you're going through it again, it's hard to maintain perspective and to understand your own situation. So it was two very different experiences of the same thing on either side.
Do you remember what were some of the steps you took, or in a way, the two ways that you went about it between when you were younger and then when you were an adult? What some of those differences in dealing with it?
Yeah, I think I actually went about it a bit better when I was younger, which is kind of strange considering I knew less, but I think that's why I went about it better. Because I was searching for answers and I didn't know quite a lot of the weight of everything behind it. I was so focused on trying to put my feelings somewhere, which was more healthy than when I was in the US and I was stuck in this apartment, nothing to put anywhere. And so everything, I began doing things which you're not supposed to do, like ruminating on the same things, the who's, the why's, the when's, and things that you can't change. And that, for me, made that experience was so much harder than my teen years. And even though I understood everything and I knew these things, and I'd done some charity work in the UK for suicide prevention, I'd made movies on suicide and this whole thing, and still I found myself in this position where I couldn't understand my own situation and I was fueling making it worse before it got better. And the things that started to help was when I was able to kind of take a bit of a step back from the things I was fighting, because I would get advice and I would fight back at that advice. People would tell me things like meditation and get a therapist, and I always had an answer. So I was like, that's not going to work for me. That's not going to work for me. And it wasn't until I started to kind of take a step back from the narrative of my situation to kind of find some kind of, or give things a chance to work, I suppose. And it started with stopping looking at the things that were making me feel worse. I was so aware of people dispersing from me, people, family and friends who were there the whole time, who kind of took a step back from me because my situation was too heavy for them to look at. And when I stopped focusing on what I was losing and I focused on what I had and the people who were my constants, that changed everything. Because it turns out I didn't need someone to fix everything. I didn't need all of these things that I thought I didn't have. I just needed my friend who always calls me to just say hi and treat me like I'm normal and give me that time to work through it.
Yeah.
And it took 6 years.
Yeah.
And she still called every day.
It almost, that's wonderful, because that is one of the things that we talk about, that a lot of what you can do is listen and just be present. And from hearing you, it almost sounds like by people being, trying to pull you back and, I'm just staying in touch, because I know that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, really beautiful. You got good friends. I'll tell you that.
It's certainly helped me with all of it.
I'm curious now if you could talk a little bit about the differences now that you've had both experiences in the UK and in the US, and how people view both suicide and mental health in both places.
They're quite similar, and then they're also not in some ways. I found, first off, both countries have amazing, dedicated people that spend their lives providing these resources and help to help people in these situations, regardless of who you are, how much money you have, or where you are, doesn't matter. There is phone lines here and hotlines, and there are places that you can call, and I've used both in both countries, and they're both as fantastic as each other. In the UK, you have Samaritans, and in the US, you have the National Suicide Prevention Helpline. And both of them are amazing, but socially there is a big difference between how suicide is talked about in the UK to the US. In the UK, it's still, it's kind of more of a less emotional approach, but it is more at the forefront of mainstream media and on our main news channels, and you will hear about it and people talk about it. It's almost like an epidemic, and it is treated as such. In the UK, it's the biggest killer of men in their prime in the UK, and it has been for a very long time. And then in the US, it's a little different. There's more stigma, I find, in the US, mostly because in the UK we're quite unreligious. And in the US, you have two sides to it, where you have more resources in smaller communities, which are usually faith-based, which is amazing. There's a lot of amazing work there. It's a little harder for people that don't identify with a faith to be able to feel like they're getting what they need from those resources. But there is more of them. But then the stigma on the flip side of that is a little stronger. There's a little bit more shame applied and blame applied than I found in the UK. But like I said, both still have all these amazing resources and people. So regardless of the stigma here or the stigma there, because now most people live online and they hear a lot of things anyway, you're going to hear all of it. It's just choosing where you want to hear it from. And if you do want to learn more about it in either country, go directly to the source. Don't listen to people's opinions about whatever on some random thing. Go to the people that are doing the work, that are trying to help people, the organizations. That's where you'll find your answers. And even if you're fighting against what they're suggesting to do, I can't tell you how long I fought against meditation and things. So just like, I can't clear my mind. Turns out you don't need to clear your mind. That was just a negative thing I saw in movies where I thought, because they would be like, clear your mind. And I'm like, I can't do that. And turns out you don't need to do that, and you're not supposed to do that. As soon as I found that out, I found a tool that worked for me. So a good way to do it is just to kind of, when you get there, keep an open mind to what might help you, because it might be the very thing you said wouldn't.
Yeah, maybe even like clear the expectation of what, like you were saying, movies makes us feel like, oh, I have to meditate this way or it won't work. But if you have a blank mind towards it, then maybe you'll find something will click.
Yeah, and it's important to remind yourself, if you're looking for answers, it's because you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And nobody knows everything. But if you're looking for answers, then you need to allow yourself to get the answer, to try something different.
Yeah. Now, I also want to talk about your filmmaking, because you are a filmmaker. So I am curious, you dealt with a suicide very early on in your life. And I am curious, how has your connection to it influenced your own filmmaking?
I think it definitely has, because I almost primarily just write psychological dramas. My characters tend to run a little bit more deeper. It's more focused on the emotional, psychological journey of a character is what sort of backs the narrative of everything I write. I'm much more interested in the development of somebody's character and their personal character throughout a story, rather than them achieving a particular goal. So that's definitely where it started for me. But in my younger years, it was a little bit different, because I wasn't just looking to write stuff, I was looking to put feelings somewhere. Because I didn't, like I said before, I didn't have any access to any help, any psychological help, any professionals, nothing. So my approach was to create something where I could put that. And so I made a short film collection, which is an anthology series, which is like poetry on film. So I wrote a lot of poetry, especially when I was younger. It was a way for me to just kind of express something. And it was one of the first mediums I found where it helped it was like getting it out of my system. Some people journal, some people write music, some people do whatever. And for me, that was the one that started it. And then when I started these movies, I wanted to put these particular feelings into making something that I couldn't find anywhere. So when I was looking for things online to help me learn, because of the stigma that exists around it, there wasn't a lot of media, there wasn't a lot of films about it, there wasn't a lot of people talking about it anywhere. And so I made it, and I made it unapologetically. I took out any kind of rules to what I should be doing. There was nothing containing what I wanted to make. And so I made, the first film is called Like My Father Before Me. They're very on the nose. But it was a way for me to put this poem that I'd written through narration in the story to kind of explain a situation I needed explained to me or shown to me that I couldn't find anywhere. So I did it for myself. And I did it the same with the second installment, which is specifically about suicide, my own experiences with it. And then with the third installment as well was another poetry on film. And so I was creating things which didn't exist that I needed to see. And in doing so, I found that I was taking all of this weight that I had. And it didn't take all of it, but it did take a huge amount of weight off because I felt like I'd put it somewhere. Almost like putting it on a shelf, and it's there for me to see when I want to. But it was my pain on film as I understood it. And someone might think, like, how can you watch those back? Isn't that? And instead, I love it. Yeah. I love them. It's like a part of me that I don't have to keep internalized anymore. And they help me understand a little bit more about what I was trying to learn, because they put me in positions where people were interviewing me about them and talking to me about them. And suddenly I was talking about this topic. But I did feel weird. I felt very weird about doing it because I felt like I'm not particularly bright. I haven't been to university. You know, I'm not this person who, I'm not the professional you should go to, but I am someone who is involved in it. You know, I'm the person you talk about, not the person you talk to. And that's fine with me. And so I wouldn't recommend the films for anyone looking for help. But I would recommend them to people who are looking to understand the people that they know that need help, because it will show them what it looks like when people are at their worst, when they're on their own, when they're in that situation, why it's so scary and why they need help so much. And that's what I wanted to create, was almost a visual representation of what that looks like to the person who's experiencing it.
And how long after your loss did you start making these films?
I think I was 16 or 17 when I started. So I was very young. It was right off the back of high school. We graduated at 16 back then. So as soon as I was done with school, I was always on the internet, casting websites, everything, trying to figure it out. I was very much on the outside looking in. I was from a particularly poor family, and it's no secret the movie industry in the UK is very elitist. The opportunities are reserved for people who go to certain schools and certain colleges, and you'll find that with anything like that in the UK. And so we couldn't afford drama schools or anything for me to connect there. So it was very much like a grassroots effort of a few people who managed to hire a camera and make it happen in our local scenery. I think the first film we shot at a local river, mostly, and my own bathroom.
Do you think that, given you had obviously a distance from the time, do you think you were ready to start putting these stories into filmmaking because you had that distance? Do you think maybe you just had been holding on to it early? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about a specific scene or a specific part of the script that really made you realize, like, oh, this is helping in processing the loss.
I think the answer is yes and no. I was ready to start putting my feelings somewhere, but I wasn't done processing what had happened. I was hit with a second wave of it in my early 20s, and just before my husband passed away, he was helping me find support groups and places that I can go to get some help to process these feelings. Because when I made the movies, I didn't understand anywhere near as much as I thought I did, or as much as I thought I was learning. I was still so detached from figuring out the reality. And this is something that comes into having autism and going through grief of any kind, is I always say you need to provide this person with the answers to their questions. For autistic people particularly really struggle to move on from a situation if they've got unanswered questions. They're questions like burning questions. They need to be able to understand a situation. I can't speak for everyone, but only people with my flavor, really, of autism. But they have these burning questions, and I needed to understand a situation properly in order to move on from it and to get to the next step. And there were so many holes in my trauma from questions that were unanswered, things that people didn't want to say. So when I first made the movies, I only knew half of the situation. And then as I moved to the US, I found out more to the situation, and I got those answers which I should have had 10 years prior. And so that caused a second wind, and I essentially went through it all again, just after the fact. And so for the movies, I feel like they represented the raw pain, but they didn't give me an understanding of what I was going through because the answers I needed were withheld from me.
I see. Now, you were saying, for someone with autism, specifically in your case, you needed answers.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any other things that we should keep in mind if somebody in our community has autism and they're going through similar loss. Do you know of any other?
Yeah, I would say something that I needed, which I didn't feel like I got it. But if I had to recommend for anybody else, which is if this person has questions and you're not the person to answer them, help them find someone who is. Because if you have a social disability and this person who has one is going through something and they've got no one to talk to with all of these questions, don't just tell them, oh, you should get a therapist or something. Help this person find them, because when you need social help, just finding and navigating stuff and having to talk to different people to find your therapist or to find the person that you can talk to, it's such a barrier for people with a social disability, because just setting that up is like a hurdle that is a wall to me that might be a hurdle that someone else who maybe not neurodivergent can jump over and find what they're looking for. But I would say make sure that person has someone to talk to, because them finding that someone is very difficult, because you're asking them to go up against their disability to get to what they need. It's not the same for everybody. Autism is such a spectrum, but that was a big problem for me, because I just couldn't navigate the social boundaries of figuring out how to find a therapist, if they're the right therapist. I don't know how I'm meant to speak or say or the right things to express to this person whether they're a right fit for me, if this is going to work. And because of that, I ended up with a therapist which wasn't great for a long time, and kind of brought me to a place where I ended up at like my rock bottom, which wasn't great, and took years to crawl out of. I would say I was in need of the therapist that I have now for about 20 years before I got them.
Wow.
And I got her, I would say, the tail end of last year. And for the first time, I'm about 6 months at this point now, where I don't even unconsciously think about suicidal ideation or anything like that. And that's the first time I've experienced that in over 20 years.
That's great.
So finding someone that they need, the right person, if you can do that for somebody, just set them up in the right direction and take out some of the social barriers, you'll be doing way more for them than you think you're doing, and something that they would definitely be up a wall against.
Now, I'm curious, nowadays, what does self-care look like to you? Self-care?
My cats, for starters. So watching shows with my cats at home is a big thing for me. Just having my personal space. And when you're in your personal space, to allow yourself to do nothing when you're in your downtime and not punish yourself for what you're not doing at the same time. So I used to do this a lot, where I'll be like, oh, well, now I'm at home and I'm whatever. And then I would sit there and be like, well, you got to do this and you haven't done that. I wouldn't allow myself the time to just breathe. And to take the load off. And so I do that now. And then my biggest thing is probably every day I FaceTime with my best friend from back at home in England, which we've been best friends for, oh God, are we coming up? How many years has it been now? Since 2010. So it's like 15 years. Yeah. It might be longer. And this is every day, has been the whole time. And we just play games with each other on our iPads. And we've exhausted the App Store at this point. So I think we spent last year doing like all escape room games, and now we're on Cluedo. So, but that for me, self-care is just allowing yourself to have downtime without pressuring yourself with what you have to do. give yourself a chance to breathe.
Yeah. We all need that, definitely. One thing we'd like to ask people is if there is any specific piece of art or media in general that you recommend everyone engage with.
This is kind of a hard one for me because it's so personal.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a particular thing, and I tried to think about it, and so the only thing I could kind of come up with for this is something that I saw recently that I thought would help other people. And does a book count?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. So there's this British monk called Gelong Tubton, and he has a couple of books out. And I saw him by accident when I was doom scrolling, and he was being interviewed on this podcast. And it was like 2 a.m. and I couldn't sleep, and the video was 2 hours long, and I sat there and watched the whole thing. Yeah. And this was my introduction to meditation. I was listening to someone who knows how to do it, tell me how to do it, and also take away all of these kind of things that I thought it was, which it wasn't. And as I was watching more, I kind of found a little bit more about him, and it was like the first person I'd ever found who had similarities to my life. And my life is everybody's life is very individual, but I haven't met another person that shared my experiences the way that I've gone through them. And this is someone who's now a monk living in Scotland, who used to be someone who wanted to be an actor in films and got involved in the wrong kind of parties and had a history with stuff in their younger years. And I was like, all of this is ringing a lot of bells for me. And it was just nice to feel like there was someone finally that I could connect with on a personal level with what's happened in my life. And so it made me listen more. And so because I finally was able to listen to someone without being like, you don't understand me, you don't know, because of this, and this, and it took all of that away. And so I had no choice but to listen to what he was actually trying to tell me. And it taught me about meditation, about sitting with your trauma, about when you have certain feelings, to sit with them but drop the narrative. Don't think about who and why this happened and it's because of them or this. And when you're ruminating on that, you're going to sit with it longer. It's going to feel bigger. It's going to feel heavier. It's going to feel worse. And so I tried a few of these things and just allowed myself to sit with the feeling and be like, this sucks. My heart hurts. I don't like this. But there's nowhere to go after that. You can't stay with it. If you're not ruminating, you can't stay with it. You just allow yourself to be like, this hurt me. And then you have to move on to the next thing. And it helped. And I'm probably butchering it a little bit. So for anybody else, Gelong Tubton, look him up. Perfect. Let him tell you.
I was about to ask you to say the name one more time.
And he has a book. It's called A Monk's Guide to Happiness. And he's not recruiting you to be a monk. He's not trying to get you to join Buddhism. You don't have to have faith to do it. You don't need any money to be able to hear what he has to say. But he's one of the only things I found in 20 years that gave me a tool that I actively use every day, which helps me. That really does work. Yeah. And it was such a relief when I found it, because I was like, no, something works for me. For me. Amazing.
Yeah, that's infinite value.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And because I stayed up till 4 a.m. doom scrolling. So don't do that, but that's how I found it. So.
All right, and then the thing we like to do to end every chat is do a quick lightning round. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I want the quick answer. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite comfort food?
Sausage roll.
Beautiful. Favorite way to unwind?
My best friend.
Yeah. Favorite childhood movie?
Bridge to Terabithia.
Ooh, yeah, very good.
It's my favorite movie of all time.
Well, yeah,
That's
no spoilers, but yes. What's your go-to song right now?
Probably L'amour de ma vie, the extended edition by Billie Eilish.
Very specific, very nice.
It's been on repeat for 2 weeks.
Favorite piece of advice?
Drop the narrative.
Oh, nice. And finally, if hope had a color, what color would it be?
Canary yellow.
Beautiful.
Everything in my house is like this. It's become a problem, but I agree. It's my color of hope.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for sitting with
Thank you
us.
for having me.
And thank you for watching this light chat. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you. Bye.